everybody. Sorry we're starting a bit late. We had a few Zoom issues, but welcome to this first noon event on midlife hair. Now, I have to say that hair has always been a massive thing for me. My hair has always been my kind of signature, and it really freaks me out because I can feel that it's getting kind of thinner at the front. I mean, it doesn't really look like it now because it's all been, I was on the telly this morning on the rain, so it's all been zhuzhed up by a proper stylist. But the truth is that it is getting a bit thinner at the front. And that's really made me think, and why, you know, partly why we've commissioned quite a few articles on Noon. And we decided to do this session because, and I was talking to Tabitha about it, I'm going to introduce all our panelists in a minute. But basically, hair in midlife is a really massive thing. And when it begins to thin, you really begin to realize what a huge part of one's kind of whole appearance and sense of identity it really is. And we know that it's really traumatic for lots of the ladies on Noon when it begins to go. And of all the things that we've been talking about, we know that hair and midlife hair is a huge thing. So I'm actually really looking forward to doing this session for ages because my great friend Tabitha, James Crumb, who's here with us, is a fantastic hairdresser and runs a salon and creates her own products, very special for midlife hair. But she and I have been having a long conversation about this, and she also looks after my hair, so she's a very special person in my life, as well as being a very special person all around. So that's Tabitha, who's going to be our expert today. And also on the call, we've got Beatrice Aidan, who is our new beauty director, and Beatty says she's getting like 5 different press releases a day from people about hair products for midlife. So we know that that's a big deal. Beatty, unmute yourself, darling.
Yeah, sorry, more than probably at least 10. It's very interesting. Of course I've more than noticed that since we've come. Anyway, carry on. Sorry, Alison.
Yeah. And then we've also got Jennifer House, who's our COO on Noon, and also is a very expert journalist, health journalist on this whole topic, and has been writing lengthy tomes for American magazines, which, let me tell you, are fact checkers supreme, and speaking to all sorts of dermatologists and trichologists all over the world about hair. So it's not just us who are really interested in all of this. So the way that we're going to run this session is we'd really like to hear from some of you. So nice to see so many of you join us today. And really love to hear from you about some of your problems, and some of you have already sent those in. So we'll be discussing those. And we'll also be talking a bit about, you know, hair, how it makes us feel and things midlife. So I'm going to start with Tabitha, because Tabitha runs a amazing hair salon, actually in Chipping Norton in the Cotswolds. And she specializes in midlife hair. And you last time I came to see you, you were saying that you see so many women come to you really feeling despairing about their hair. So do you want to talk a bit about your perspective on this, Tabitha? And we'll come on to some of the wellness aspects and what we can do in terms of nutrition a bit later on.
Sure. Thank you, Eleanor, and thank you very much for having me on today. It's a real pleasure to be here. Yeah, so well, I'm an unusual type of hairdresser because I'm an organic hairdresser, and I've been an organic hairdresser now for over 23 years. So I've always taken a slightly different approach to hair generally. This for me started way back when I was first pregnant with my first child, and my midwife told me to stop colouring my hair because I was pregnant. That in itself was just such a shock to me, because I was a very accomplished hairdresser at the time, and to have somebody sort of tell me to think differently about how I'd been trained as a hairdresser at that point because of something that was going on with my body made me kind of stop and think, you know, well, what on earth's going on here? What, you know, I could do something about what I was using on myself, but it made me look at the work I do, and that sort of started this journey of approaching hair in a very different way. The reason I bring that up is because my salon has been, I've had salons now in the Cotswolds for all of that time. I think I started my first salon back in '93. So I've been working with women, and obviously as I've kind of grown and become a woman in midlife myself, I found my clientele were sort of joining that part of life too. So it's just been a really a very privileged journey, I think, just sort of getting close to people at that point in life. And as you say, losing hair is something that comes up an awful lot. How we feel about our hair in midlife comes up an awful lot. I feel that, you know, a lot of it's a time more than ever where we really need to focus on the condition of our hair and what we're doing. And I think sometimes what we're doing to ourselves and what we're doing to our hair. And as I said, I pointed out the fact that I'm an organic hairdresser because I tend to approach everything that we do with our hair from a very different perspective, in that, you know, what can happen accumulatively over time is that we start to do more and more and more over the years. So maybe in our 30s and 40s, we start to get greys, for example. So then the colouring starts. So then, you know, the hair already starts to change because a lot of colour may be starting to happen. From then we can start to, you know, start to become product junkies, you know, sort of there's just so much out there, and we're sold so many ideals of what, you know, so many products that are going to fix everything, you know, give us the ultimate sort of hair improvement. So we can have product overload too. Then we're sort of thinking, you know, all of these things starting to chip away at the hair gradually, you know, through our 30s and 40s. And I think we
There's a bike, I'm so sorry.
Go on.
I didn't catch what you said, sorry.
She said, I think she's got a delivery. She's got somebody at her door, so she's going to let. I swear, going round to Beatrice's house is hilarious. It's like being in the kind of beauty department of Selfridges. And every 5 minutes, another courier turns up with another bag of goodies. It's absolutely hilarious. So I'm really sorry about that, but it's one of the things you have to deal with when Beatty's around. So no, sorry, Tabitha. So you're going on. So I think it's really interesting what you say about we kind of pile the stuff onto our hair, and I think that's right, that you start kind of, you know, doing the highlights or messing around with it. So is the kind of build up of those kind of toxins, if you're having it bleached a lot, is that going to weaken your hair?
So I don't consider, where do we go here? There are so many factors to this. I think accumulatively we start doing a lot more to our hair. So whether you're colouring, I mean, bleaching your hair, lightening your hair sounds like a really scary thing to do because we think of other associations with bleach that we might use in the home, for example. But actually, when it comes to colouring your hair, it's the darker colours that are far more dangerous for our body and have far more impact on our health than the lighter colours. And very often, most people that are having lighter colours are having them in foil packets and highlights anyway. So from a personal health perspective, it's not the most sort of harmful thing to us.
Oh, interesting.
When you've got dark, you know, when you started hair as started life as a brunette, for example, and you want to stay that way, so you're having to use darker dyes to take your greys away, that's actually a far more challenging for the body, because there's no way really of doing that without using you know, man-made chemical dyes, synthetic dyes, and the accumulation of those can be very harmful. So, you know, sort of, and it's again, it's all about balance, really, with, you know, with our body and with our health. If you've got other issues going on health wise, if maybe your diet isn't where it needs to be, and then you're doing these things as well, I think these are the times that we can get sort of almost like toxic overload in the body. Dyeing your hair dark, colouring your hair dark very regularly can then, in my experience, start to cause issues, because that's when I would experience seeing things like you know, accumulative issues around losing hair prematurely. Right.
And that's really interesting, because you would have thought, I mean, I know nothing about this, but you'd have thought that the bleaching was going to do that, but it's actually interesting that it's the darker dyes that do that. We've got quite a few questions on the chat talking about menopause specifically, and the kind of and what's happening kind of in the body in terms of kind of hormones, and whether HRT kind of helps kind of with bringing hair back. Jen, I know you've been talking to a lot of experts about this. Do you want to tell us, do you want to kind of speak to some of that a bit directly?
Yeah. So I've been talking to dermatologists and looking at studies. And first of all, that was a surprise to me. I didn't know that if you're experiencing hair loss or worried about it, you should see a dermatologist. But they really are the kind of people. And that's one thing here, you know, this is going to be a great discussion. We aren't doctors, we aren't dermatologists. So if you do have kind of a serious medical issue or just a problem that it's really bothering you, do go see a dermatologist and get a medical opinion. But yeah, so there are different kinds of hair loss. There's something called female pattern hair loss, which we all know the male pattern, which is that, it starts to recede there and sometimes there, where they get that little, the ring of hair there.
The monkey thing.
Yeah. And female pattern hair loss is the kind where your part starts widening. And also kind of going here.
Yeah. No, I'm getting that. I've noticed my brother, who looks very like me, is getting very kind of widow's peak, and I think that's what's happening to me underneath my. I keep pulling it forward, so you can't really see, but there's definitely less of it than there was.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that is genetically related. It runs in families, and so that kind of widening part and whatnot, that is something that you can get treatment for, and the regular kind of treatments of like, Regain for women or any of those kind of minoxidil, different kinds of products like that, they do work. And
how do they work, Jen? Because I know you've been looking at the science of this. What's the science going on your scalp?
Well, what happens with a lot of this hair loss is that basically, so the hair has 3 phases where it grows and then it rests. And so then it's just on your head and then it falls out. And what a lot of these treatments do is they extend the amount of time that your hair grows. Because what happens with like say female pattern hair loss that often kicks in later in life and right around menopause is that it basically more and more of your follicles just switch off. And so what some treatments do is they keep those follicles producing, because it's not just that your hair starts growing, but often it will become miniaturized. So the actual hair follicle starts to produce hair that's thinner and a bit more fragile, not as much color in it, that kind of thing. So the hair that you can be left with hair, if you think, oh, my hair's getting thinner, that might be the case. And that's another kind of change that can happen to our hair. And then there are other kinds of hair loss. There's temporary hair loss, something called telogen effluvium, but that's when kind of stress can affect your hair. Lots of people got this with COVID.
Absolutely.
And it comes back. So Beatrice, you'll know all about this from your kind of beauty director wisdom, but it does come back in cases of telogen effluvium. You have alopecia areata, which is where, excuse me, the body's immune system attacks follicles and you can get little round patches. And I think the one thing that I really learned through talking to a lot of doctors and looking at a lot of these studies is that we shouldn't minimize or dress ourselves down if we get hair loss and it really knocks us for 6. That doctors acknowledge it can be one of the most stressful things to happen, and it's so visible, and so much of our identity and how we feel about ourselves can be wrapped up in our hair. That sounds kind of weird, wrapped up in our hair, but
it's very good.
that it shouldn't keep you from seeking help or getting advice or getting treatment, because it is important, and it can be, especially during midlife when our bodies can change. We might be going off in a new direction with the help of places like Noon, but that it's okay to kind of, tackle this head on.
Yeah, no, and I think that's one of the important things why I really wanted to do this session, was that I've had a lot of women say to me, oh, I feel kind of stupid, or I feel kind of vain, that I'm really kind of actually really like traumatized by the fact that my hair is going. And I think that's why shouldn't we feel kind of wrong about that? And then a great friend of mine had breast cancer, and she said actually what was worse than the chemotherapy in a way was losing her hair, because she lost such a huge sense of identity. And I was down at this amazing new place in London called the Future Dreams House, which is for breast cancer sufferers. And one of the amazing things they're doing there is they've got incredible experts to help women with their hair and to fit their wigs. And I was there while a woman was having a wig fitted, and she looked so fantastic. And she just sobbed with relief to see her kind of her hair come back, because she felt like herself again. So I think that it's really that we should be gentle on ourselves and kind to ourselves if we're feeling that this is traumatic, because it is traumatic, and we're allowed to kind of seek the right help, and it's okay to feel worried about it. And that's why we really wanted to do this session, because I think it kind of matters that we take women's concerns seriously on this front.
I was speaking to a doctor the other day who said to me, quite interestingly, that I don't know about you, but on my chin, I have the most amazing growth. I mean, and on my moustache, it's like extraordinary. And she was telling me about the different hormones, and I wish I had this. I did print it out, but I'm trying to. I've got it here. Dr. Anna Mansouri, and she was saying to me, when estrogen drops, you'll notice a reduction in the platelet hydration of your skin. But also you with a rise in the male hormones, you're going to get this lack of hair, but more hair.
Oh, I see. So we get a bit of male pattern baldness, do we? So that's why. So I have a wonderful witch hair that grows like crazy out of my chin.
But it all comes out here for me. I don't know about you. I've got this wonderful hair that just is like thick as hell. It's like spaghetti, and it comes out. And once every 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm gonna get you. So it was very interesting to me to know that actually it's it diversifies. Should we just say that?
So we still grow hair, but in all the wrong places.
In all the wrong places.
I'm going to come back to you on this. I'm going to get to some of the specific
of course,
here, because we've got loads and loads of questions coming on. But Tabitha, I'm just going to go back to you. What do you see in the women who come to you? Because I remember the last time I came to see you, you were talking to me about kind of just some of the trauma that people come to you with about their hair going.
Yeah. As I said, I think what I witness a lot is just. Sometimes there can be this accumulation of stuff we get in a state of panic sort of through those years, really sort of leading up to midlife almost. And I think sometimes then we reach a point in our lives where actually there's so much has been happening that we've kind of been overdoing. And I believe that it's maybe a time to start, as you say, maybe start slowing down a little bit and looking at how we can do less but that's more effective. So really thinking about the condition of our hair, really thinking about how we're washing and caring for our hair, that it becomes more of almost a ritualistic time that's for us, that's for slowing down, that's for using things that we know are going to be gentle on our scalp, looking, gentle on our skin, gentle on our hair, and not being as, we're sort of maybe we've sort of come through this time where we're racing around all the time. It's just quick, sort of scrub our hair in the shower, chuck on some conditioner, we're done and off we go, and we're expecting so much of ourselves, whereas actually that slowing down can really be hugely different and have a massive impact on our well-being as well. And these are all factors, stress is a huge contributor for hair loss and for these other hormonal issues to be becoming more prevalent, because we're pushing ourselves in a way that we're out of balance. So
yeah, and that really rings true. So the research that we've just done at Noon, we've done the biggest piece of research yet conducted on women 45 to 60. We did it with Accenture. We just published it. It's all called The Rise of the Queenager. And what we found in that is that we looked at kind of 10 massive life events, bereavement of a kind of close partner, death of a parent, redundancy, divorce, problems with elderly parents, caring issues, teenagers with anxiety and anorexia, violence, domestic violence, mental health problems. And of the women that we looked at, over 50% had, actually no, it's more than that, it's over 80% had 5 or more of those issues in their life. And one of the reasons that I set up Noon was that we could see what we call the midlife maelstrom of lots of these things all hitting at once. Often when I talk about divorce, bereavement, redundancy, I can't, elderly parents, I'd see women in the audience going tick, 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 I've kind of had all of those. Yeah. And then they all hit with a kind of menopausal storm for a lot of women as well. And I think that you're totally right, Tabitha, that we also then don't slow down, that our natural tendency is to go, I will cope, I will fight fire, I will kind of, keep juggling all the balls. And of course, something has to give. And I think we're quite often quite bad at putting ourselves in a situation where we actually do a bit of self-care and a bit of self-nurture and go, well, maybe my hair is getting thinner. There isn't just like an instant fix, that all of these things take a toll, and we have to really kind of look after ourselves and give ourselves a bit of love. So
Eleanor, do you think it's a sort of maelstrom of hormones, life circumstances?
I do. And I think that that's why a lot of the conversation around midlife and menopause really gets my goat. And we see that reflected in the research as well, that menopause is one of the one of the factors that is hitting women in midlife, but it's often, it can be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because there's a whole load of other things. So you have an issue with an elderly parent, you've got a teen who's got an anxiety disorder, you've got chaos going on at work, you know, sorry.
Or a teen
just full stop. Yeah, exactly.
Just full stop.
Or, you know, and then there's divorce and relationship issues. And what we find with a lot of the women at Noon is that all these things are happening simultaneously, and then some people have problems with menopause, but it's actually only about 1 in 4 women who really have serious problems with menopause. And I think that a lot of the conversation around midlife gets dominated by menopause, as if we're all kind of hysterical, kind of, you know, womb dependent beings again. And I find that really annoying, because I actually think that there are a lot of, our research shows there's lots of other factors in this, and that women want information and the right treatment about menopause and access to HRT, which a lot of us have been denied because of the health scares recently. But this is not just about menopause. And this is also what we're saying is, if we help women with all these pinch points, we can then help them into a new chapter, which is joyful, fun, productive, purposeful, you know, legacy, that being a woman in midlife is not all about being a walking hot flush, that there's so much opportunity here too. And that's really what Noon is all about, trying to fix.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity for reinvention, isn't it, as well, and take stock of, you know, how you feel about yourself and your appearance as well. It doesn't have to be, you know, something like colour, for example. You know, maybe it's the time to think about changing the way you colour your hair. Stop colouring your hair even. You know, this is me, this is grey, this is my natural colour, and that's unusual as a hairdresser. You know, I'm in an industry that's all about colouring hair, but yet I wanted to walk the walk and say, well, you know, why should I be perceived as looking older, or why is it a man can be distinguished when they're grey? Actually, I want to do that too.
But you see, you look amazing, Tabitha, and I would look not amazing. So and I want to ask you about dry shampoo, but that's something to come to, because I've got a few little bits here. You look great. It's about knowing what you look like before you. I think we've got some more questions. So Eleanor, I'm going to let you take over before I go on to my Baptiste.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, you take over, hun.
Oh, okay. So there, we're getting quite a lot of specific questions here. So it says, any advice on the latest treatments? My own experience is that there are not many products formulated specially for women. So Regain was created for men. My dermatologist recommended finasteride, but because I had breast cancer, I can't take this, but crush it into powder and mix with minoxidil. Any new products that have come on the market? BT?
That's one to investigate.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about saying anything personally. I think that's one to investigate, but I'd be really happy to look into that.
Yeah, we'll look.
I do know.
Go on, Jen.
I do know. I haven't researched it here in the UK, but I do know in the US, finasteride, which is known as, oh God, now I can't remember the name. It's, you know, it's one of those kind of well-known hair things like Rogaine and whatnot, but Propecia.
Someone's saying Propecia.
Yes,
yeah, well
but
done.
actually in America that has an FDA black box warning, which means women of childbearing age cannot use it because it they don't recommend it because of potential impact on a baby. So I don't know, that's in America. I don't know what the rules are here, but definitely make sure if you talk about any kind of treatment like that, you really discuss any side effects with your doctors.
It's prescription only Propecia or whatever it's called here, sorry. So that's definitely one for the doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, we've got one of the women here saying, she said, I've done PRP and went on spironolactone, because my understanding is that PRP helps new growth and spironolactone helps you keep your hair. She said she had side effects from spironolactone, so she had to go off it and her hair loss came right back. Yeah. So it sounds like some of these, what do you see, Tabitha, of people who've been using some of these kinds of things?
Again, it's I think it's very personal. Different things work for different people. I think you need to speak to experts. It's really important not to just dabble with these things without getting expert opinion. Dermatologist, absolutely. Your doctor, absolutely. Even a nutritionist, absolutely. There are many things that you can think about.
Yeah, that's one thing too, that that kind of pyramid of health. So if you're not getting all the nutrition and nutrients and everything you need in your diet, naturally it's a theory. I think it's not kind of scientifically proven, but if you're not getting all the building blocks down here to run your body, of course your body will say it's more important to make sure organs and everything is healthy. We're not going to worry about your hair.
And your gut health.
You make sure you're getting all like really good nutrition and managing stress levels, certainly.
And gut health too is, that's crucial. It has, it has a huge impact on, our whole sort of general well-being as well. So that's also impacting our stress levels, and these things can be accumulative. It just getting out of balance in that way can all really contribute.
Yeah, and Julie Poole on the chat is saying that main solution to midlife hair loss is more estrogen. So this is HRT. So do we? I mean, we've got quite a few people on this call. Has HRT? It'd be really interesting to know. Has HRT helped your hair loss? I mean, certainly, I think the best hair I've ever had was when I was pregnant. When your body is absolutely kind of, flush with hormones. And I remember when I stopped being pregnant, like my hair kind of fell out in handfuls. It was kind of hugely
right?
Stress. Yeah. And so I think that would make sense. And Dr. Nigat says that the lack of estrogen also plays a big role in.
I've witnessed that too, definitely, but not for everybody. I think again, it's really personal.
Can I just ask you, Tabitha, right? Because I'm the lady with the products. And this is the scented oil, and this is I like doing. So I did it in front of Coronation Street for half an hour the other day. Apparently, I'm not meant to do it for that long, but it doesn't matter. And it's scented hair oil, and you massage your scalp. And it's. Let me just. I'm gonna have to read this out because I did print it out, but it encourages blood cells to rush to the scalp surface, where the whole hair follicles reside, and then ensures healthy blood supply. And it's got rosemary, peppermint, castor oils. I absolutely love it. Hence, I was doing it for half an hour in front of Corrie.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Head massage is wonderful for encouraging blood flow to the scalp. So definitely, it's a good thing, and it's calming and balancing for you as well. So
that's true.
Again, that whole well-being thing. It's taking time. I have my own scented organic hair oil, which is amazing and gentle for the scalp. I mean, I did that for exactly that reason. I think actually we need to think about why. We do an awful lot here, right? But why, when we go back an inch, why is that different?
Yeah.
Do you know, I mean, I'm forgive me here, but as I said, I am an organic hairdresser, and therefore for me, I've approached this. My whole journey was like, actually, I need to rethink this whole process. What are we doing when we wash our hair? For me, actually using a strong detergent-based shampoo that takes away the oil from the scalp completely, actually, I discovered for me was actually this is where we're going wrong. Because when I first started to become an organic hairdresser, I was looking at, well, how can I find products that are going to, be kind of kinder to the body and get everything a bit more harmonized and in balance? Why are we greasy at the roots so quickly? Why do we have to wash our hair every day? And the truth of the matter is that, most shampoo by its very nature is designed to be a degreasant.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take the oil away, what our body very cleverly does is pushes it back again.
Oh.
So you get yourself into this perpetual cycle if you're not careful of having to overwash the hair, because you're creating the oil and you've got to wash it away. Well, if you're at a stage in life, male or female, and you have hair loss at that point, if for other reasons you've got hair loss, it can be exacerbated by the fact that you've got too much oil on the scalp at that point in time. So it's kind of, perpetuating the problem. So actually calming down that natural production of sebum at that point in time is really important. And so therefore using something that isn't as abrasive, that isn't going to kind of stress the body. I would say to most people, is the shampoo you're currently using, can you wash your face with it? Because if you wash your face every day for a week, I know exactly. And if you're not happy with how your skin looks after a week, well, maybe that's your answer.
I'm not going to try it, but it's a great challenge.
No, I think
that's exfoliating and you get rid of the sebum. Is that going to help the hair grow?
You're encouraging blood flow to the scalp. Yes, absolutely. That would definitely encourage.
Well, and there's actually there was a study in Japan that they found that head massages, in addition to all these benefits, that the stretching of the follicles that happens during head massage can help promote hair growth. That was just one. It was just one study, But yeah, quite interesting.
There's an awful lot more that I think that there's an awful lot of more research being done at the moment, and I think what I've recently learned is that it is actually possible to reawaken the hair follicle too, that it actually when hair has gone completely, that it is but it is possible to actually, you know, bring that back. So, you know, it's not,
wow.
Yeah, it can change. It's not, it doesn't necessarily have to be a permanent thing. So, you know, it is important to keep hope and not think that it's whatever's happening to you is forever. And I'd sometimes just rebalancing of other things can really have that positive stimulus.
Now, I think that that's really interesting. So there's people on here saying, what's the ideal on hair washing frequency, Tabitha? What would you say?
Well, I always say, I think an ideal would be a couple of times a week to do wet washing, but there are many ways that you can wash your hair in between. So, for example, somebody referenced dry shampoo earlier. Dry shampoo can be a really good way of prolonging your hair in between so that you're not wet washing as often. Also, co-washing is another really important thing, and anyone who's got curls might know a little bit about this because there's a massive movement.
Did you say co-washing or curl washing? Does that mean showering with someone?
No.
That's what I will suggest. Good for the environment.
It's a different kind of well-being, Jen.
Jen, sorry.
What's co-washing if it's not jumping into the shower?
Exactly. What is it?
It's washing with conditioner, but it's certain types of conditioner. But so, you know, washing with moisturizer basically, so that you can wash the hair in between shampooing by cleaning it with moisturizer. I believe that we shouldn't actually, when we wash, you know, our hair itself actually needs to be cleaned with moisture anyway, because this fabric behaves much better when you moisturize it. And incidentally, that's another really important thing to recognize in midlife, I think, is that for a lot of us, the hair has just become drier and drier and drier. So it's a really important time to really get, you know, use something like a very, very fine oil to get get the balance back in. Just like on our skin, we need that acid mantle. That's why, you know, days of old when we used to brush their 100 strokes a day, we've all heard those stories from our grandparents, grandmothers, and the idea of just kind of building up sheen in the hair. So putting that back with a very, very small amount of a natural oil, in my view, honestly, it's instant, the difference it can make, and it can really, really bring the life back to the hair. But then you get hair that will hold moisture and retain moisture. It looks younger, it brings it back to life. It kind of has more of its natural luster. That can make us feel so much better.
Mm-hmm. No, well, I'd like to say, and I'm really not one for plugging people's products, but Tabitha's hair oil was life transforming for me. It's partly why I really wanted her to come on this call. It smells amazing, and it really could transform the way that my hair looked. It kind of puts it into kind of defined curls without it looking dry. I think it's really fantastic. Because there's someone on here saying any recommendations for a good hair oil.
I said scented, but I haven't tried Tabitha's.
Yeah, no, I'm honestly, I am the queen of hair products. I've got such kind of crazy dry hair. And I think Tabitha's oil is fantastic, and we're going to give you a code actually if you'd like to try any of her organic products. They're really, really good. So we've done washing frequency. Did the detox shampoos really work? What is it?
Really great question, that one.
Go on, Beat, one for you.
Well, no, it's just like there's Bumble and Bumble have one called Sunday Hair, and I can't remember what it's called, and it's such a great name. However, if your shampoo doesn't clean your hair, where are we? Right? I mean, you know, we're going for the Dettol or something like that. I don't know, but it's meant to clean your hair. Now, I live in central London, and I have to wash my hair. It does need a little bit of help right now, but I have to wash it every 2 days. I don't think it's going to help very much if I get a special detox shampoo. Tabitha, over to you. What do you think?
Yeah, what is a detox shampoo? What do they mean by that, Tabitha?
A detox shampoo, the idea is that it's kind of removing any buildup of toxins, buildup of, you know, atmospherics.
But shouldn't that be automatic?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe in them personally. I'm sorry.
This is why I'm not in public relations.
No, well, but the whole point of what we do about Noon is to recommend things that we really, really think work. No one on this call is getting paid anything to promote anything, which is the first thing. And I'm saying that I think Tabitha's hair oil is good because I bought it myself and I really think it's good. You know, I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't think that. And I think that's the same with anything else which is on here. So
100%.
Yeah, you can all rest assured. So, you know, no one's getting paid for showing you her kind of her massage dongle for her hair, and we'll put the details of it on the thing.
But it's a very interesting thing that, sorry, Els, I'm just going to interrupt.
Yeah.
Is that detox is such a buzzword and has been for you know, it's like detox spa, and we haven't been able to go away for so long, and it's like detox spa, detox whatever, and it's such a good buzzword. But what you need is a shampoo that cleans your hair. I'm not saying, you know, it's like you don't use fairy or whatever you use to do the washing up. You want something that works but cleans the grime, cleans the pollution. That's another thing which we've got much more of away. And I love the idea of a detox shampoo. Bless.
But we don't necessarily think that they work. And also what Tabitha was saying is that overwashing your hair can make it much worse. And I'm quite a fan of your what you're talking about co-conditioning. So what you do then is you don't use shampoo when you wash your hair. It sounds weird, but you just wash it with conditioner and then leave it. And actually, weirdly enough, your hair is kind of less greasy, I think. I mean,
washing
very
is
dry.
as we wash it. That's the thing. You know, our bodies react to what we're doing. So if you wash every day with shampoo, you need to wash every day. So you've got to kind of take your body on a journey of slowing that down. So irrelevant of my products, I would say to everybody, just try and stretch it out by half a day between your washes. Don't do anything too quickly. If you could, I could wash my hair once a week because that's my regular ritual. So I produce a balanced amount of oil within that time frame, if that makes sense. I don't get oily in between. So, and that's what happens to everybody. You know, that we've all heard the stories of those people who've gone cold turkey. Well, that's a horrible thing to do. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
I was at school with them.
Yeah. So, you know, the point is you want to enjoy your hair, you want to feel good about yourself every day. So if you want to make a change, you want to be able to wash your hair less often, then it should stay clean for longer in between, but you've got to do it gradually. If you've been washing your hair your whole life in a certain way, you know, then it takes an awful long time. It's a whole month of cell renewal in your body for a small shift to happen. Well, that needs to be accumulative to get longer. So don't try and rush it. Just kind of take stock and do it slowly. But it's very liberating not to have to wash your hair every day. And also you get an awful lot of time back. So
I think also one thing we haven't kind of touched on is also people like Black women, their hair care practices are going to be a lot different. They can also be at risk for kind of tension alopecia from the hair being pulled because of certain styles like braids and whatnot. So yeah, there are all these kind of ways you really have to tailor your routine to your own kind of hair needs.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was interesting. I talked to this one dermatologist and she said she would never dictate to anybody how they should wear their hair, but she does like to say, you know, your hair should really kind of work for you and best practices within whatever it is your hair does for you, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really important. What about silicone in products, Tabitha? Someone here saying, Tabitha, do you see people with silicone buildup from shampoo and conditioner containing it? And will you explain to us what silicone is in products and what it's supposed to do to our hair?
It's great. But it's terrible. It works, but it's terrible. I'm sorry, it was Tabitha, your question.
It's appalling for the environment.
Okay.
Just to say that and sadly hair products are very laden with silicones and also liquid plastic emulsions as well. This is something that is absolutely rife in hair care, as it is in body washes and hand soaps, any liquid washing products or conditioning products. You know, for washing clothes as well is the same story. But when it comes to silicones, the intention is, because, you know, detergent is quite harsh, it doesn't leave your hair feeling nice, so these products are put in to give slip and silkiness and reflectiveness so that the hair looks glossy and shiny. But, you know, for me personally, that was why I became an organic hairdresser, because for me, I was like, well, actually, this is crazy. What are we doing? Why do we need these synthetic layers that actually, from a hairdresser point of view, it's a challenge too, because they can build up on the hair. They can prevent color working properly. I've seen hair in appalling condition because of the buildup of silicones over the years. So it's really, I don't think they're very good for the hair or for the body.
It's cheap, isn't it?
It's the problem. Exactly.
It's cheap and it works, and this is why I'm saying it's great, but it's obviously not.
Yeah.
You know, like it's very interesting, the environmental thing points you bring up, because we hear about that now, but you know, there are brands that, let's think of, I'm not going to say names, but without blaming or anything like that or shaming, it sounds awful, but you know, who sort of, you know, their transformation of using silicone in hair care was transformative in hair care. I also just want to touch on the fact that I was told by one hairdresser, if your blonde goes too blonde, to use tomato ketchup as a mask on your hair.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that go on. But also, just to go back, sorry to, I know, right? I never tried it, but my hair's gone wrong a lot, especially during lockdown. But also, just to say that Yasmin Le Bon, I was at a talk with her, and she spontaneously said that she had had a hair transplant around here. Now, I tried to rage, and she's not very keen on talking about it, but it was incredibly, I know, brave, I'd say, thing to do to a room full of women talking about this. So I was going to ask you, what do you think, Tabitha, we can do about nutrients? What you know, are there any nutrients one can take to help?
Yeah, yeah, Jen, you've been looking at this.
Sorry,
we were talking about nutrition. So what's the best thing one can eat what's the best stuff to eat for one's hair, or the best thing you can, or the supplements?
Right. Well, of course, so most people will have heard of biotin, and you can go to the shops and see loads and loads of kind of hair vitamins that include a lot of biotin. In terms of the research, the jury's still out on that. But adequate biotin, which is also known as B7, iron, vitamin A, zinc. I mean, these are all things that we need in our diets anyway. You can get them through your diet: eggs, salmon, avocado, leafy greens, beans, tomatoes. So getting those kind of basic vitamins in your diet is really important.
And vitamin D, yeah.
Sorry?
Vitamin D we all know about.
Yeah. Vitamin D.
It's been a big thing during COVID as well, so that's interesting.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. So basically, lots of leafy veg, kind of iron, all the stuff which is good for us in midlife anyway, should help the hair. Less stress.
Yeah, and I think also what Beatrice and what Tabitha were both saying, that it's like your scalp is skin. And, you know, often we think of taking care of our hair, but we need to think of taking care of the scalp itself, the skin underneath the hair. And that, you know, that really helps both, you know, it helps health of the scalp, health of the hair. Like all the dermatologists I speak with talk about the health of the scalp just being so integral to having, you know, keeping your hair.
What kind of things can you put on your scalp which help? I mean, Tabitha's saying don't put really astringent kind of shampoo on it. That makes sense to me. But what things can you kind of rub into your scalp? Is there a kind of equivalent of kind of, you know, the kind of moisturizers we put on our face for our scalps?
Yes, there are. There are lots of exfoliating products as well that you can use, but very, very gently. You know, that's the thing to do for the scalp. Moisturizing as well, you know. Sometimes a lot of people think they've got things like dandruff, for example, but so often it can be dryness on the scalp from overwashing as well, because the skin can just become so dehydrated that sort of white dust on the shoulders can often be just literally tiny bits of skin where it's dehydrated scalp. So actually moisturizing, so using an oil before you wash can be a good thing to do. So and even just sort of a really pure oil from the health food shop, you could, you know, you don't have to buy some expensive treatment. It could be something really, really simple,
like olive oil or something.
Not olive oil, no, that would be too heavy, but something like an almond oil.
Almond oil.
Yeah. Or jojoba, something that's very light and moisturizing, but just to massage it into the scalp before you wash, so that it's sort of just getting chance to deal with the skin on the scalp as well.
And this is a question, but
that's really interesting. I had no idea about that. Go on, BT.
Oh, okay. So I've got this apple cider vinegar scalp scrub, and I've tried it and I really liked it. However, and then there's also an apple rinse. So Adam Reed, who's a hairdresser, was telling me about this, about apple cider hair rinse. Now, I admit, I have thick hair, and one day I won't, but I was wondering, do you think it's too much to use apple cider vinegar?
Sounds quite drying and acidic to me.
It does, doesn't it?
What does Tabitha think?
No, actually, apple cider vinegar can work nicely. You don't need to do these things too often. You were talking about detoxing earlier. Actually, apple cider vinegar is a really good way of detoxing the hair.
Okay.
So, and it also closes and seals the cuticle, which then makes it shinier and smoother. So it can actually be a good thing to do. But you dilute it down in water. You wouldn't use it neat.
That's a whole thing. But I also bought some. You don't need to buy the product. You just buy it and dilute it. Exactly. And he said it got rid of the silicone buildup, which I thought was interesting during this conversation.
But you do it once, once a month, something like that. You wouldn't need to do it very often.
No. Somebody's asking here about hair porosity, which I would say is probably is relevant, I would have thought in this instance. Well, yeah. Can you explain to us what that is, Tabitha, and how that works?
So hair porosity is how absorbent the hair is effectively. It's how much, it's literally going to absorb moisture and liquids or not. And often if the hair has become more porous, it's because of the hair has become damaged. So hair at the roots is very rarely too porous. It tends to be the hair through the length of the hair and through the outer, where the cuticle layer has sort of broken away and the hair's become weaker, and it's then become changed the porosity. Again, for me, this is where using a very good and very fine oil really helps, because you can protect that hair and build be able to put some protection back so that you can seal it to enable it to hold moisture. My whole thing is I'm really big on, as we said, treating our hair and scalp differently, but the hair itself, this is like a natural sponge. Basically, that's how we need to think of our hair. And when it's strong and healthy, it's sort of, it's quite balanced in the porosity levels and the way that it will absorb moisture. Where it's weak and damaged, you need to help it a little bit but when you get moisture into the hair, it becomes malleable and you can mold or form shape that you want. It'll hold movement or stay smooth better because it's moisturized. When hair is really dehydrated, then it becomes, stiff, it snaps, it breaks, it doesn't feel nice, it feels crunchy, and that's the hair we don't want, because it won't do what we want it to do. And you go out in damp atmosphere and the moisture comes in, and then the hair frizzes and does all the things you don't want it to do. So the key is really to get enough moisture into the hair that it doesn't need more, so it doesn't take it from the atmosphere, and that can make a huge difference.
May I ask you about drying your hair with a hairdryer and then straighteners? And I've got a kind of curly whirly thing which I love, which smooths, well, not today clearly, but smooths my hair. And I'm not being a woman and being self-deprecating, it's just because it was a very humid day, I have to say. So what does the damage do to the scalp in that regard, and does it have any effect on your hair regrowth, do you think? As long as you don't bash massively hot hair on your scalp.
Yeah, no, there's lots of questions on the chat as well saying dry hair can run the risk of breakage, so especially if you're pulling on a brush. But what would you recommend in terms of
it's about protection beforehand. Don't keep the hairdryer on a lower heat. Make sure you're holding it from distance. Don't get the hairdryer too close, so you're literally burning the cuticle layer on the hair. So be careful, be mindful that it's a delicate fabric. I always say to everyone, think about your hair as cashmere. You're not going to throw it in the washing machine every day. You've just spent money on a cashmere jumper, you're not going to do that. So think of your hair as cashmere, be kinder to it, just take it gently. Yes, it needs to be, if you're wanting to use multiple tools, as you've just expressed, Beatrice, then you need to get the hair bone dry before you start curling it, for example. But so therefore having some heat protection, but something as simple as a really delicate oil can be enough for that. Some moisture, just make sure that hair's not being over dehydrated, because then you've got it stiff, snapping, breaking.
Yeah.
Moisturize
And then hot, and then applying
and
heat.
then more
not-
heat.
And-
Exactly.
Yeah, and
What's
also what
Go on, Jen. Go on, Jen.
Yeah, just quickly, one thing about that too. One thing that can happen if you're using a hair dryer or an implement with really high heat, there's moisture left in the hair. The moisture can be underneath the cuticle, and then like if you apply heat to water, of course, it becomes steam. So you can actually get little kind of bubbles in the hair strand itself, and that lifts the cuticle up and just gives you that awful kind of frizzy,
Frizz.
awful.
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah, and then I suppose, and then people add silicates to it to try and get rid of the frizz, and then you end up in a terrible cycle. So what about keratin? What is keratin? Someone's asking, and so there's a question here about keratin and also about hair masks. How do they work? Are they worth it? Tabitha.
They're all different. Well, let's answer the first one about keratin. Keratin is protein, and it's the protein that's found in hair. So there are lots of products out there that are sort of intended to replace that. So where the hair's weakened, you can sort of put the keratin back to try and repair it. It can work. It depends on, it depends on the product. And again, you'd want to make sure you only put it where you need it. So you wouldn't put it where the hair was already happy and healthy, for example, because then you might be putting too much protein, and that can make the hair stiffer and then more susceptible to breakage. So just thinking about how you use it. I mean, if you're a product like that, I'd always say take advice from your hairdresser, let them show you how to use it and where to use it.
And also hairdressers, I think a lot of people, there's a funny, excuse me, but there's a really funny disconnect, because the whole time I speak to hair salon owners or whatever, they're hairdressers, they're not salespeople. So people think, oh, they're hard selling me something, but actually hairdressers do have the best advice. They've got professional products.
Yeah.
It's not just a hard sell. They're like actually most of the time trying to say this will be good for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people go, oh yeah, I'll go to buy something from Boots or whatever. So, and also hair masks.
Hair mask.
Yeah, and tell me about that.
I mean, there's so many types. So it's a very generic, there are hundreds and hundreds of hair masks out there. For me, I believe in moisturizing the hair, as I said before. So a hair mask that's based around adding more moisture to the hair, yes, I think that would be a very beneficial thing to do. So I'd say, again, take advice from your hairdresser on the types that are right for your hair type.
Yeah, and someone say, what would be the best non-silicone product for frizz?
I think MP. Color Wow, but I've got to check that out, but I'm pretty sure it's silicone free. What do you know? What do you think? But
I mean, my hair goes crazy. I love, Tabitha can't say this, but I absolutely love Tabitha's oil. I think it's absolutely amazing. And also her leave-in conditioner, which is a miracle product. There's you can wash your hair with it, you leave it in, and it makes it
pure
much
moisture.
dry.
Yeah.
And John Masters is organics. Hello, just have one here sitting on my desk. And they're
what's her name? Beatrice.
John Masters Organics, and this is a hair mask. And I have to say, they do skincare as well. And I get sent a lot of stuff. And I would say, to the question about frizz and hair masks, this is a really good one.
I would agree.
And it's really good.
Okay, well, thumbs up from Tabitha. This is a good thing. Jen wants to know about eyebrow loss. I'm just going to go back to this. So it says, does grey hair make your scalp less greasy? Says Ishmael, or is that a fallacy? And she also wants to know whether thickening shampoos work. And what's the theory there? I love all these questions about hair. Who knew there was so much to know?
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? But totally fascinating.
Grey hair can absorb more oil. So yes, it can therefore, but it can also just be at the point in life when you're going grey that you're also naturally becoming less greasy. So it depends. It's a very personal thing, but I would say both of those are true. Second question.
Thickening shampoos, what do they do?
I think you have to be careful with ingredients. Again, if it's building up with synthetics and silicons to coat and thicken the hair, or with plastics, that's not a good thing. absorbing those plastics into our body, not a good thing. Washing them down the plug hole, not a good thing in my view. But I think it's also a buildup of synthetics can cause issues on, you know, on the scalp. So yeah, those are things.
Yeah, so all of those things. So I think there's some kind of basic, I'm slightly mindful of the time. There's some quite basic kind of things here, which is basically treat your hair like cashmere. I think that's a really good thing to remember. Think about what you put on your own kind of face and how careful you are about your facial skin, and maybe think about that in terms of your scalp. And I think Tabitha's idea about trying your shampoo kind of on your face, and if it makes it really dry, then that's probably what it's doing to your scalp.
Be careful when you're doing that.
I'm not suggesting to go and do that I'm just saying,
but I think it's a good like, you know, just to do it a bit and feel what it does.
I mean, because you know, it will really show you because you're absolutely right. And as Jen was saying, you know, as you were saying, it is your skin. It's just so suddenly realize that, you know, I don't want people to come back using a certain dandruff brand and go, oh, my skin exploded.
Yeah, but I think it's a good way to think about it, though, isn't it? I think that's important. And I think the other really important thing is, because we've had a lot of stories about, you know, people with alopecia and asking about HRT and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I would really suggest Jen's comment about talk to a dermatologist. I think that's a really good idea. And talk to your hairdresser and talk to your doctor. Somebody on the chat was saying that their doctor had been completely useless.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, I'm really sorry about that. Yeah. And maybe what we'll also do, if there's more a kind of interest from some of you on some of the really more technical stuff around alopecia and hair loss and trichologists, maybe we'll put together a really kind of like super expert session where some of you can talk to a real expert kind of in the future. One of the things that we're thinking of setting up on Noon actually is a kind of directory of experts for people to consult on this kind of thing.
Well,
Beatrice, we're going to start putting that together.
We definitely need to get from you, Beatrice, a kind of best dry shampoos and all those kind of things from your beauty director, with your beauty director hat on. So there are a lot of questions.
Yeah, you can do them in your Friday Five. And Tabitha, and you know, just to say, Tabitha's really sweetly offered everybody who signed up to this 20% off on her amazing.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Tabitha. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so everyone, just quickly, everyone, I pasted that in the chat, but don't worry, when you get the follow-up email from Zoom, it's also in there. So don't worry if you don't have time to write it down right now.
Yeah, and we'll also send an email to everybody who signed up for the session or people who are going to watch it on catch up so that they can take advantage of that too. But I'm aware that we are now over our hour. I was amazing that we had we could keep going on hair for an hour. I was worried that we might run out.
We've got eyebrows next, so this is great.
Yeah, so no, we haven't even touched on eyebrows and how they fall out, but I think there's probably a whole session to be done on facial hair. I know that my children quite often say to me, "Mummy, which hairs come back?" So you know, what we can do about that, I think it's quite important to go through.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Happy Easter. Happy Easter.
So happy Easter, everybody. We've got another free dating in midlife workshop kicking off this Saturday, if that might be interesting to you, and more book clubs and all sorts of great things coming up. And we're also about to institute a first Noon walk. So keep your eyes peeled for that. When we did our last Noon book club, we did it with the Dog Days author, and she suggested that we do a walk. So we're going to do a Noon walk down, inaugural one down in Rossingdean on the Brighton coast, which is coming up kind of after Easter. So have a look for that. But thank you so much to everybody for coming. Thanks to Tabitha. I'm so glad that we've finally done this. Honestly, we've been talking about it for about a year and a half. So I'm glad that we finally got it together. Thank you
for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks, Beatrice, for joining and being your first Noon panel, isn't it? Other than going through my makeup bag. And thanks, Jen, for your brilliant insight. I know you've been writing all sorts of learned pieces.
Really interesting, Jen. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
And everyone loves it on the chat. So thanks to all of you for joining, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. And I can see some nice kind of friends on there. Nice to hear from you as well, Sue. I know she's another friend of me and Tabitha. thanks everybody, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks for
Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.